Welcome to RPG Book Club. On today's bonus episode, all this worthless shit at low prices, can you afford not to buy it? Alright, hello and welcome to a very special episode of RPG Book Club. This is a bonus episode because so far today we have me, Sam Allman.
Me, Eli.
And then we don't have Michael Rodriguez right now because he had a whole bunch of family emergency stuff come up and he didn't have time to play this week. So instead of trying to rush and play 9 hours of Persona this morning, we decided to take the week off. We'll be back to our regularly scheduled stuff next week. But in the meantime, we thought that we would do a short game and one that we could completely beat today and talk about, have a normal RPG Book Club style discussion on it, but it just be a much smaller thing. So the game that we're going to be playing is a game called Space Funeral, and it was brought to our attention by our guest host this week of Michael Webben. Say hi.
Hi, I'm Michael 2.0 or maybe 0.5. Who knows?
So
yeah.
If you've ever seen the show Dinosaurs, it was an old sitcom that was made by the Jim Henson Company, and it was like a family sitcom but about dinosaurs. They had this show within a show that was Ask Mr. Lizard or something like that, and it was based on Mr. Wizard. But he had this assistant named Timmy. And in each of those episodes, he would put Timmy into some horrible, dangerous, precarious situation, and ultimately Timmy would get killed, usually blown up. And the catchphrase of the show was, "We're gonna need another Timmy."
So we're gonna need another Mike.
We're gonna need another Michael.
The other Michael, oh gosh, what is it from The Simpsons? Died on the way back to his home planet.
Yeah. I must go. My people need me.
Yeah. So this game that we're playing today for our Space Funeral is a RPG Maker game, and it's freeware. So if you've never heard of it, you can pause this podcast, go play it for like literally 2 hours, and then come back and do it. It is a perfect bite-sized RPG game, and it's free. So
I will interject one thing. If someone actually does literally heed your advice and press pause, go play the game, and then come back, they are going to need to know that there is a small issue with getting the game to run.
Oh, yeah. So the game was made using the RPG Maker 2003, which is super old and relied on a system font from that doesn't exist anymore.
From 2003.
So you have to go and re-download that. That's the MS Mincho font. You literally just search Google for MS Mincho font. Since it was a system font, it's free to download. You just download and install it, and then the game will run fine.
Yeah, and if any of those words are confusing, the link that we're going to share to play the game in the description, if you scroll down a little bit on that link, there's a commenter explaining what to do. So very, very easy. Should not be a problem.
Super duper easy. All of the info will be in the description if you want to play along. But let's load up and let's do some Space Funeral. So the moment you start the game, you notice that right away that you're in for a treat, because the game doesn't say new, load, and exit. It says blood, blood, and blood.
So much blood.
Well, what I love about that is that right off the way, you know that you're playing a game that is for RPG fans. Yeah. Because you don't need, like, if you're me, you know that those three options that all say blood are actually new game, load game, and exit game in that order. And that's exactly what it is. And like the game is just assuming that you're going to know that because you've played RPGs before.
and like I died at one point and I had to load my game and I didn't even like blink. I just picked the second one and then picked my second one. So once you click on blood and you start your new game, there's no cutscene, no nothing. It's like old school The Legend of Zelda. It just drops you in, and the background music is like some easy listening classic rock, which like it also sounds like it's played at like slightly the wrong RPMs and through a speaker in like another room. It's really like ethereal and weird.
It's almost like proto vaporwave. Like vaporwave wasn't a thing at the time, but it's classic rock chords, but it's like ambient and also kind of surf rocky. It's so neat.
Yeah.
It should also be noted that this game makes Undertale look like the fucking Mona Lisa. It's gross. It hurt my eyes.
Yeah, it is extremely intentionally gross. Although I think it becomes less gross later. I think some of the later areas are kind of beautiful, actually.
Yeah.
But the first area is not.
My favorite part is, for some reason, the right foot forward sprite for while you're walking. Your hands are above your head. So the whole time you're walking, you just randomly will put your hands up and then back down.
It's fucking weird and messed with me. And
it's the main character's walking animation is just like a masterpiece of awfulness. This game came out. I can't believe I didn't look up this very important information. I believe it came out in 2005 or 4. I mean, obviously, it's easy to say one thing influenced another just because they look similar, but I really do see a lot of influence here on MS Paint Adventures.
I definitely do.
Its use of capitalization, largely, but also like the ugliness reminds me a lot of like Sweet Bro and Hella Jeff, but also it reminds me of the masterpiece in Act 6 that the villain draws.
I don't think I actually got to Act 6.
Oh,
I may have. I don't remember. It's one of those things where like I remember things that happened, but in a list of just 8,000 pages that are all just titled left carrot or whatever, it's really hard to know where I am.
A lot of things happen at Homestuck. It's understandable.
Yeah. But to answer your question, it was released on September 17th, 2010.
Oh, 2010. No, never mind. I guess it wouldn't have been an influence then.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I played it. Gosh, when did I play it? I played it in 2012 for the first time.
Yeah.
So wow, I thought it was. I thought that when I first played it, it had been around a lot longer. Huh.
Yeah. Or that at least was on the Game Jolt page. It might have had a different home before then, but its Game Jolt page was uploaded on 2010.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I actually do think that it came out, maybe not 2010, but I love this game. I played it many, many times, and I have read about it in the past. So now I'm remembering something that I may have read, and I do think it came out around that time, maybe 2009, 2008. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so you start the game in this little room, and there's 2 other NPCs in there. One of them is apparently your dad, because he says, me and your mother think that you should leave. And that's it. Your own body is in a casket in the back corner. And then the other NPC, presumably your mother, says to eat your greens. And that's all you get.
That's it.
It sends you on your merry way.
One of my all-time favorite opening lines of a game. It's like, what's the inciting incident? Your dad kicks you out of your house. Also, if that casket that has you in it, if you recall. So yeah, you just literally see a coffin with yourself lying in it, which first of all, major Persona 3 hours. But you talk to it and you're like, why is me in a coffin? And excuse me, it turns out that's just a bed, and that's how you save your game.
Yeah.
Or not save your game, that's how you would stay at it in. So you click on it and it's like, rest here. I guess you're sleeping on top of. I think the idea is not that that the coffin actually has another you inside of it. It's that it's just a coffin and you sleep in it. But because of this game's like intentionally awful sprites, the sprite
is always
just
there.
Already has you in it. It's like they didn't bother making an empty casket and a casket with you in it. There's just one casket and you're already in it, to show that that's what you'd have to do. And if you say you want to sleep in it, it says one of my favorite lines. It says, no punctuation here except for the period at the end. You feel better, but not much.
Well, and there's no sleeping animation either. Like it doesn't even go to black or anything like that. It just says
how
you feel better, but not much. Yeah. So
yeah. It gets off to a really solid start. Oh, and the final thing, since we're talking about the first room, we might as well. If there's a chest in the room, and if you click to open it, it says, got 25 rubles. All right.
Yeah.
I love it.
As a person who studied Russian in college and is probably still advanced at it, I don't know. I'm pretty rusty. I appreciate that this game's currency is rubles.
Yeah. I noticed that as well. I thought that was great. So it was at this point where I pressed the wrong button, because I would typically, when I play RPGs on a keyboard, I make select X and back on Z, and they're backwards on this one. So I've opened up the pause menu a million times and accidentally talked to NPCs when I was trying to pause a million times. And so I accidentally opened the menu and I saw that my name was Philip and that my species was a sad.
I believe that might technically be what I think, as far as RPG Maker goes, that might be where your class is supposed to go.
Like, supposed to go.
The job system. So it's like, what kind of person are you?
Sad. And your close-up, like a picture there is you just bawling completely,
and you're bright fucking pink.
Yeah,
you are the pinkest.
It's so good.
And you're wearing these like yellow striped pajamas, but they're striped in the most like inconsistently drawn line I've ever seen. It's like you're just painful. This weird rectangle that's horrible to look at.
It's really unpleasant.
It's so good. So you finally leave your house after soaking in 11 minutes of content, and then your house is actually a skull. And nearby your house are a bunch of other skulls that you can interact with. The first one that I checked had a man that looked just like my dad. So I wrote my notes, I guess, that my dad isn't special. We find out later why this is a thing, and it's actually kind of cool. But we'll get to that in a bit. And then the next house is a tutorial house that tells me about the battle system. And this was right when I knew, this is like early, I had kind of gotten like Lovecraftian vibes, but it was at this point that I got the MS Paint adventure vibes, because you talk to one guy and he's talking about how different items are super effective against different enemies, such as criminals are a superstitious lot. They are greatly affected by Bibles. Animals are easily confused. They are affected by magic eye pictures. And ghosts are sentimental. Scare them off with old movies. Like,
I did fucking none of that. I just kicked and punched my way to victory.
Yeah, so one great thing about this game is it's not really a genre of video game, but I think it should be a genre of video game, and that genre is the fake RPG. Mm-hmm. It has the form, and you notice I use the word form because that's a very important theme of the game. It has the form of an RPG, but it's so mind-numbingly easy that you never have to interact with any of the systems.
Yeah.
And I don't consider that a flaw. Like, you're not supposed to be having any difficulty playing this game. It's really like what we later come to call a walking simulator. Like, that's what it is. But it's made to look like an RPG, but that's important because you're supposed to approach it the way you would an RPG. So it's the jokes it makes about these RPG mechanics are like part of the story that it's telling. And it wouldn't work if it didn't have these pretend fake, don't actually matter RPG mechanics.
Well, and I really like games that are kind of meta like that. Like, they know their games. They, the NPCs inside of them are kind of self-aware, at least to some degree. And maybe there's an NPC that's like super self-aware and that sort of thing. Like, that's part of what drew me to Undertale a whole lot. It's part of what drew me to spoilers for Undertale. It's part of what drew me to Doki Doki Literature Club. Spoilers for Doki Doki Literature Club.
You can't just let people have things, can you, Eli?
No, I guess I can't. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I'm really bad at knowing what's a spoiler and what's not, because I don't fucking care about spoilers, because, like, to me, it kind of gets me emotionally prepared for what's happening, because I'm a super like, I react very viscerally to a lot of things, and so like I don't have a problem with someone coming up to me and being like, Snape kills Dumbledore, because I'm like, oh, okay, well now I can prepare myself for this moment.
Yeah.
You know?
Like I classify the spoilers in two different ways, where one of them is a well, how do we get there type spoiler. Like I was spoiled for the very last thing that happens in Persona 3, like right before the credits roll, very last thing that happens. And it's one of those like, I wonder what what's going to happen there. But like if say something like The Village from M. Night Shyamalan, like if that was spoiled, well then like the fun of watching the movie,
you don't need to see
gone.
the movie at that point. Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Pause. Okay. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, go. Everyone say their opinion on The Village. 1, 2, 3.
Best movie of all time.
Okay, cool. I always thought we were gonna have more divisive opinions there. Good. Yeah, it rules.
Yeah, it's so good. That's the one that everyone says was the first of the worst, and I disagree. I think it was even better than anything else he had done.
I don't think it's his best, but I do think that it's great.
I thought it was interesting. I'm not a great movie critic, because like my tastes tend to be like on the low end. It's like meh, not really that great, didn't like it that much. And then if I really enjoy it, it's, oh my god, I am obsessed with this thing forever.
Yeah. I for a person who has a piece of paper on his wall that says that he should be trusted for movie opinions, I like a lot of movies that everybody hates. Like the first time I watched Last Airbender, I gave it a B-.
Oh my god.
No one should trust me with anything that I ever say.
I like a lot of bad things, but that's not one of them.
On repeat viewings, I saw that because the thing here to go through my defense of Last Airbender, they took so many things from the show and made them into real life, and they looked amazing while they did it. And so that's what I saw the first time. I was like, oh my god, did you see the Fire Nation's armor? Did you see this? Did you see that? Everything was so cool, except it wasn't. Actually.
It was not as cool as you initially thought.
Yeah, I was blinded by special effects.
I kind of actually had that experience with Last Airbender 2. Not to go off on too much of a tangent from Space Funeral, but yeah, I like whenever I see a movie for the first time, like my usual reaction is, well, that was, like if it wasn't amazing, I'm usually like, okay, that was pretty good. Here are the things that I liked about it, and then later, like, it takes me a while to kind of analyze it and pick through it and go, okay, you know what? It really wasn't that good.
Yeah.
But like, I just don't think I'm a very good critic in that regard. I have a really hard time coming up with things to criticize in the moment. It takes me a while.
Me too. So,
back to Space Funeral.
Funeral. So, I talk to the rest of the NPCs in the town, and they tell me that the Blood Cavern is to the north, but there's a pathway headed east. So I go east, which takes me to the Bone Swamp, and I see another house on the far end. So I venture into it, and it's a dungeon. And one thing I noticed here, having made games in RPG Maker 2K3 before, the monsters wander around on the world map in this game, which they don't. Like, that's not a feature of RPG Maker. So he went out of his way to program this because he knows that random battles suck. And so he was just like, look, this is a fake RPG, but I'm not going to make people do random battles. And I thought that was like an awesome touch of like, so many people are out of love with random battles from the olden days that they just like, even though he was just kind of making a joke little art project of a 2-hour RPG, he still set aside time to make sure that the game wasn't annoying.
Yeah, it's like I'm a random battle defender for some very specific weird reasons that I'd love to get into sometime. But it's like, look, the battles are piddly easy anyway.
Yeah.
You might as well just be able to skip them too.
Yeah.
Right.
while you're at it. One thing I like about the path to the what's this cavern called again?
Bone Swamp?
Bone Swamp, yeah. On the way there, you have to buy a boat, and you buy this boat from this girl, and she's like, "Hey, pay me 200 rubles, and I'll give you a boat." And excuse me, and the little boat appears, and it's just like in a lot of RPGs where you have a world map, and you go inside this boat that's the same size as you, right? Like it's representational, but the difference is that this isn't a world map.
Yeah.
Like in a normal size swamp, and everything's normal size. But the boat is still a tiny little like miniaturization of a boat, and you go into it the way that you would on a world map. And it's like the metaphor still makes sense, again, if you've ever played like, especially the Final Fantasy games. I feel like the boat looks more like a Final Fantasy boat than like a Dragon Quest boat. But you still see the girl there, and she's normal size, and you're fiddling around in this boat, and I find it so cute. Also, the music switches when you go in the boat, but it also only lasts for about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Out of the boat.
And it has a slow start too. So it's like silent, and you make your way across the swamp, and you're about 3 squares away from the end, and then the music starts, and then you get out, and then you go into the bone.
Yeah. Pro tip though, I don't know. I mean, y'all probably picked up on this to an extent, but me, again, being a nut about this game, has picked up on it to a greater extent. The soundtrack in this game is incredible.
Oh, it's so good.
It was like very interesting.
One of my all-time favorite game soundtracks, but it's even better if you either sit there and don't play the game and listen to the songs, or listen to the soundtrack on your own time, because most of the songs you never hear more than 30 seconds of them before some other song is playing.
Fun fact, here in the Bone Swamp, we get into your first battles, and as previously mentioned, they're super duper easy. The dungeon itself is not much to talk about. It's like a single pathway that takes you to the end, and then there's a giant multicolored dragon called a swamp trog there. And I actually wrote in my notes that the swamp trog battle was a quote remix of the battle theme, because it just was a longer fight, so I heard more of the battle theme.
It's the same track.
Later I stopped in a battle to like write something, and the music continued. I was like, oh, this has been there the whole time. I just never got close to hearing hearing that thing.
In what I am generously interpreting as an elaborate reference to Final Fantasy I, the game has a single battle theme. Just like Final Fantasy I, which has not only does not have a boss battle theme, but it doesn't even have a final boss battle theme.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm supposed to get pumped for the final boss of this game, and it's the same song I've been hearing the whole game.
It's like,
in Final Fantasy I consider it a flaw, but in this game I consider it a cute joke.
So in the battle, I used Mystery for the first time, which taught me Mystery Punch, which one-hit KO'd the Swamp Trog. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to have to worry about battles ever in this entire game. For me to press one turn, like completely underleveled, the first thing I'm really fighting in the whole game. So I stopped caring about my stats at that exact moment.
Yeah. So I hope that both of y'all were using the mystery command as often as possible.
I did not touch it because it was like, it's a mystery. It could probably kill me. I'm not going to do it.
Okay, so here's what happens with mystery. You can do it once per battle, and it just does something random every time you hit it. And it is actually possible for it to immediately kill you. That did not happen in my playthrough, even though I did it on every single battle, and I think took a screenshot of it every single time I did it to catalog what happens. But yeah, so when you use against the Swamp Trog, it says, Philip suddenly learned the Mystery Punch skill. But then it says, Swamp Trog suddenly remembers a dentist appointment. And then you use Mystery Punch and it kills him. So that might be programmed in that you learned it in the Swamp Trog battle. But I think it's a combination. Like, whenever you use Mystery skill, it might be based on who you're fighting, or it might just be random, depending on if it's a boss or a normal battle. Like, for example, later I used it against a certain kind of dog, and it said, Philip started to cry. And then the effect was the blood wolf became moral because I started crying. So it's just like completely weird random stuff. Like sometimes both of the enemies will instantly die if you use mystery. It's just it's good stuff. And again, I never instantly died, so that it must not be a very high percentage.
I feel it's probably a certain like drop table per type of enemy you have, so that when you're fighting randos, you're not getting the same thing every time, but they can do things like for boss battles, because I was facing the criminal king later, and Mystery gave me a Bible, which is like a one-hit kill move for the criminal.
Against Bible. That didn't happen to me. Yeah. Nice.
So I don't know if like I just happened to find a Bible there, or if that was like stacked in that favor since I was fighting somebody that was weak to Bible.
Mm-hmm. Knowing my luck, it would have killed me instantly, and I would have been like, nope, never doing that again.
When you're inside the Bone Swamp, when you first show up, there's some knights, and one of them's like, can you go get me a big bag of blood? And I'm like, okay, I'm sure I'll find that in the dungeon somewhere. You kill the Swamp Trog, he gives you a big bag of blood. You go back to the beginning, and those knights are gone. You can't finish that side quest. It's not real. They're gone completely.
Actually, wow, I just literally said actually. Who am I? But anyway, it just so happens that is a hilarious accident on your part. It's actually possible to find a big blood. There's a treasure chest.
I found a treasure chest with.
So I think it's hilarious that happened to you, and in fact, that's actually better. But it is actually possible to complete the quest. You give the knight the big blood, which turns out bags of blood are healing items in this game. Because this game's very blood themed.
Gee, I hadn't noticed.
Definitely.
And anyway, he just says like thanks, and then he gives you some kind of useful item. So yeah,
that's funny. But I head back to the village, and I noticed a red house up in the top that I had missed. And here's where I finally learned plot. I had been playing for 20 minutes now and had no idea what I was doing. And so there's a wizard who says it's too late for you, which a bunch of NPCs have already told me. That it never once explains what it is. So I wrote down every time someone said it, but you go through the whole game and it's just too late for you. But
it reminded me of Majora's Mask. You've met with a terrible fate.
Yeah, it definitely like sold the creepy vibes that this game has going.
I actually recorded all of the wizard dialogue. I could just read it because it's good, and it'll explain the plot to people who are actually listening to this. He goes, I'm the wizard of Scum Village, which you didn't know that's what it was called, but now you do. And then he goes, what? No, it's too late for you. It is said that there is one perfect city in all caps, a divine construct from which derives all things in this world. All things are manifestations of this one thing. All cities are aspects of the city. But it has been corrupted. You are already doomed. Wizard Grum lives in the Blood Cavern. He is your only hope of finding this city and restoring the world. The road to the Blood Cavern is dangerous. You'd better find a weapon. And then he says, you should go to the Bone Swamp to the east of town. So he's like, hey, it's dangerous. Go get a weapon from this optional dungeon. Psych, you never need that weapon because the game is too stinking easy.
But yeah, so I immediately caught on, don't know if you guys did, that he was talking about Plato and Plato's forms type thing. And
absolutely.
I thought that was a really cool, like, fertile ground for storytelling, and I am a little upset that this 2-hour joke game is about the Plato forms, because like just like that story I could easily see being like a long like Final Fantasy level story with a bunch of twists and turns and going to this city of forms and all this craziness, but no, it's you just walk across a couple screens and punch a couple dudes.
It's the actually, like, the game's silly and dark, so exaggeratedly dark that it loops around and becomes funny. But I really do feel like it has a great sense of dread. Like, the whole game is like something is extremely wrong. Everything is broken. Everything is sad and depressed and broken and ugly and horrible. And it used to not be that way, but then something happened, and now it all is this way. And it's just so weird and existential, and you never get a great explanation. You do at the end, but not like a super RPG, like you said, like 40-hour RPG lore explanation, right? But just like the graphics do such a good job. You're just like, everything repeats and is fragmented in these gross ways. And for all of its silliness, I think that the actual core theme of the game, whenever it actually is hitting it, it is hitting it. You know, like, it takes I think it takes itself seriously when it counts.
Yeah. So after talking to the wizard and realizing I had already done his mentioned side quest, I headed north and I found 2 caves. One had a giant version of my dad's bloody face in it, but there was no way to interact with it. It just was set dressing. And in the other, there was a floating letter that says "expect the worst," and then the narrator said that it was a lame letter. So then on the next screen north, you meet your second party member, Leghorse, who is a horse made out of disembodied human legs.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
And it's gross.
His head is a leg, his legs are legs, his torso is a leg. They're all bleeding.
It's really gross.
They've been shaped in the form of a horse.
It's
It's
so
like
he calls me a cringing puss in all caps and begs me to fight off the blood wolves, which are literally just wolves that are vomiting blood. This game is gross. If you're just listening and you're like, I'm going to listen for a bit before going and playing it, warning, this game is really gross.
Yeah.
One of the mysteries that I hit fighting the blood wolves, it said Philip is grossed out. Oh no! At first it said the blood wolves like vomited blood, and then it says Philip is grossed out. Blood Wolf 1 is appreciative. I think he's being appreciative of the other Blood Wolf vomiting blood.
That's
I think
funny.
is what happened there.
So I joined Leghorse's team. He's very adamant that he's like, I will allow you to join me on my quest north to find the wizard. And so we continue heading north, and there's a pig in a business suit who sells a mystery item, which turned out to be a restorative. I don't know if it's random every playthrough, but for me, it was just a heavy restorative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's how it is, yeah.
So then farther along the pathway, there's a house I can go into, and then Skeeter from Doug is inside of it, but he won't talk to me. And then farther still, there's a dock where I can buy passage to the Blood Cavern proper. Inside the item shop where you buy the ticket, there's a dog who says that surely you will die if you head north, which is there are so many things that like in Dark Souls would be terrifying, but because it's in this gross pixel art funny game, it's just like it's like if you've listened to the podcast Welcome to Night Vale, it like uses Lovecraftian horror as a humor mechanism, and this game definitely does the same sort of thing where you see surely you will die. None of that, no word in that sentence is a joke, but you read it and you laugh and you then continue north anyways.
It's weird. I in retrospect, I think this is extremely strange. I don't know what kind of weird place I was in when I first played this game in 2012. But when I first played this game, I think I described it to my friend as it's hilarious, but you're not laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I meant was that it's funny, but it's also like, I don't know, I found it very just like disturbing and upsetting and sort of profound. But in retrospect, I find that humorous because I've played the game like 4 more times since. And now I just think it's the funniest, like just like laugh out loud, ruffling the whole game. And I'm like, why did I find this so upsetting and unnerving the first time through, but also dark? It's like I used to think it was dark and also funny. Now I just think it's funny. Maybe I've changed as a person. I don't know.
When you get on the boat, you can walk around and talk to the NPCs. Note that this boat is full sized. Like it is the size of like a real boat that you could actually walk around and be on. It's not the tiny little sprite from earlier, so it's a very inconsistent way to use boating in this game.
It's more like a raft, like a log raft.
So if you talk to Leghorse on the boat, a glitched out sprite comes by and he calls them an error, which is something that couldn't decide on a form after the all caps great change took place. And,
I think the line is something like no one can even imagine what it used to be, or something like that.
And I thought it was really cool, and like although the plot is like 4 seconds long, it's consistent in a way, and it uses like real storytelling techniques, because like there's a lot of fake RPGs that I've played like on Newgrounds and stuff that really are just like a loose string of memes held together with pressing A to win type thing. But this one is like there are like foreshadowing and things like that like really expand the world of this game in a way that like it doesn't deserve to in a like short little joke game like this. And I thought it was really, really awesome that it was consistent in like how it wrote things, I guess.
That was the moment where I was like 100% on board with this game, because I was like, oh, great. This is awesome. Game is self-aware.
Yeah.
It knows. And I just like, I was super excited at that point. And like the other stuff was absolutely humorous to me, but that was what kind of really brought me into it was, oh, this is cool. They're pointing out a glitch in the game and they know it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
They're maybe not fully aware, but they have some semblance of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then immediately following that, like the first actual real cutscene of the game is, I think, the point at which the game turns into something that you're really going to remember and is not just weird and goofy. And it's when you get to the Blood Cavern.
Yeah, so the Blood Cavern starts. I'm probably only going to do like 30 seconds of this because it's like a 2-minute monologue, but audio comes over your speakers and says a lot of really creepy stuff. And I'll play that right now.
When the low, heavy sky weighs like a lid on the spirit, aching for the light, and when, embracing the horizon, it pours on us a black day which is sadder than any night. When the earth is turned into a gripping dungeon in which hope, like a bat, flutters blindly and bruises its timid wing and tender head against the walls and rotted ceilings.
The visuals that go along with it is only like 255 red and black for the colors. Like there's no shades.
Deep red.
It's like looking at a Virtual Boy.
Yeah.
Did y'all notice the part where you go into space for a bit?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh my gosh, I might send y'all the video in a bit later. There's a part where, the background's black, but it's got little white spots on it occasionally because it's like, or red spots because it's like, rocks and dirt, right? You're in a cave, so it's like black, but occasional little specks of detail. But there's a part where you're walking through it, and then all of a sudden, the background changes, and it's still the same shade. It's still black, but now the background is static, which is to say when it scrolls, the ground doesn't scroll with it. So now all of a sudden, instead of those white dots being specks of dirt, those white dots are now stars. And you're walking on like a bridge with like stars in the background. It's only for one. It's like at the bottom of one screen. It's just very weird, and it makes sense that you could have easily missed it. But I think I'm interpreting that correctly. Yeah, because it goes from the white specks that are dirt scroll whenever you move to they don't scroll because they're the background now. It's real neat.
That's super cool. So you when you get to the end of it, it's a fairly it's not even really a dungeon. It's just a couple of rooms with only one path, and you get to the end of it, and you see the wizard, and Leghorse tells you to stay back, that he must do it alone, and then it fades to black, and it comes back, and Leghorse says that the wizard is ready to see me. I go up to the wizard. He asks if he can drink my blood, and I say yes, too many times, and he kills me, and I game over.
One of my favorite lines of anything. What does he say? Okay, so I got a video of this. What does he say when he drinks the blood too many times? He says, "Can I drink your blood?" And you say yes, and he goes, "Oh, you have to let him drink your blood at least once because he has to do that in order to predict the future, basically. And if you don't, you can't proceed with the game." And then he says, "Oh, your blood tastes so good. Can I do it again?" And you go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Gulp, gulp, gulp." And then if you say it the final time, the exact line is, here we go. I'm getting to it. I guess a little more. Okay, he goes, gulp, 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 gulp. And then in asterisks, like to denote action happening, it says asterisks, sound of straw sucking up last centimeters of syrup drink. And then it just immediately smashes to the game over screen.
It's so good.
And then you hope that you saved recently.
Yeah. I had saved back in the boat dock, so it wasn't terribly far.
I saved immediately before that because I was like, they said to save a lot, so I'm going to save a lot.
Yeah, that's why I told myself that.
So, So I go back again, and this time I actually pay attention to what he's saying, and he says that it's too late. Tells me again that it's too late for me, but he senses a mysterious fate. I let him drink once, and he tells me to go north to the city of Forms. And on the other side of his cave is the town of Malice. To the east of that is the Mystery Forest. To the north of the what he calls it Ghost Forest. He's not consistent, but
I haven't noticed
it says
that.
to the north of the Ghost Forest is the Wastelands, where the wizard's friend lives. When I try to leave, the leg horse decides to come with me. And in the next room, a blood ghoul attacks me after he talks about his blood gooping out, and it's really like gross.
Yeah. So that turns out that blood ghoul, if you notice in the credits of the game's very end, he's quoting some like book or poem. I recorded it, but I forgot to remember. And it's not something I'm not clearly not as literate as the person who made this game. So it was referencing something that I caught a couple of this game's references, but I didn't pick up on this one. It's not something that I'm familiar with. Also, the poetry being read by Ruth White, an early electronic music lady, it's Baudelaire. It's a famous Charles Baudelaire poem.
Oh, nice.
Which is also, again, I'm not up on my French poetry, at least.
Nice. I got 0 of the references for me. So the blood ghoul, I'm fighting with them, and I was going to use items because I had an old movie, and old movies kill ghosts, and so I was going to use that, but my he attacked, and when the enemy attacks, it eats your inputs for a second. So when I hit down 4 times, it only read 3 of them. So I hit mystery on accident, but the mystery that happened is I begged for mercy, and the blood ghoul mysteriously died.
Oh my goodness.
So
That's
I was trying to use the 1-hit kill and accidentally got a 1-hit kill.
I didn't get as lucky as you, but when I used mystery, it did say that Philip made that creepy face from Stanley Kubrick movies.
Here's Johnny.
I love how it says from Kubrick movies. Like, wait, in all the Kubrick movies, they have the same creepy face? Well, I don't even know what creepy face you're talking about. Like,
amazing.
But like, what else is there anyway? Like, there aren't creepy faces in. It's not like someone who makes that same face in other movies.
In 2001: A Space Odyssey, as opposed to The Shining, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, and then Blood Ghoul became spooked because I spooked him with the Stanley Kubrick face.
That's great. So on the other end of the cave is the town of Malice, which is a desert town that's filled with pigs. One of the pigs tells me of a 20th century boy roaming the desert. That's probably going to be my intro for this episode, is that we're a couple of 20th century boys. But so I find a house with a house in it, and inside the house is a decapitated man that just says, "Help me." No quest, no nothing. He just says, "Help me."
The house inside the house is so weird. It's like a courtyard. It doesn't make any spatial sense.
No,
that part's really good.
It's definitely one of those things that's playing with RPG tropes, because RPGs, you walk up, like you're outside in a town and you walk up to the inn that is 3 squares wide, and you go in and you're in a 20 square wide building, because like size is not important in typical JRPGs. And so that's the same thing on here. It's like you walk in a house and then inside there's another house, because all houses only need 4 squares, and of course inside the 16 squares of inside of a house you can fit 4 squares. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Of course.
Did you guys go in the house with the guy that had the pet mummy?
Yes.
I did.
Yeah.
It's another businessman, looks like your dad, and he's just like, hey, keeping mummies around is dangerous. They like to eat your flesh. And then you see a mummy, really actually super cute sprite of a mummy. Yeah. He's just waving his arms around like, woo. And you talk to him and he just goes, like, why is this guy keeping it? He says mummies are dangerous, but he has one. And the mummy seems like he's doing all right, I guess.
So I try and head east into the Mystery Forest, but I'm told that only Rip the Blood can go through. Earlier, there was this criminal guy who said his name was like Punch the Face or something, and
something like that.
And he said that he was going to go north and meet his friend Rip the Blood. So we had already heard that Rip the Blood was like an important person. And so since I can't go east, I continue looking through the town, and I hear that Rip the Blood has invited a lot of mummies to town by the digging that he's doing, and it's causing a mummy cataclysm. And I find another floating letter that warns me of the power of the djinn, and an NPC that tells me that the djinn can grant me my heart's desire. And I don't know who to trust at this point.
And then there's also that one shop that I believe, Sam, you found particularly entertaining.
Oh, the one that sells garbage?
Yes.
Yes. I don't know if I jotted it in my notes, but you go in and the guy's just like, hey, I sell a lot of useless junk in this shop. And it's a normal item shop. It has all of the normal items that you've bought everywhere else for a premium. And but then there's a NPC in there. And he's what's the exact quote? I know I said it in the Discord.
I've got it. He goes, all this, and again in all caps, all this worthless shit at low prices. Can you afford not to buy it? And then another customer goes, I am pleased with the selection of complete garbage on sale. Also, outside of the store, a guy who looks similar, he's like, please visit my brother's terrible store.
It's so good. Outside in Malice, there's a pig who tells you a secret password to Rip the Blood's palace. Says it's right, left, right, middle. I then talk to another NPC that says, hey, would you like to go to a pyramid? And I click yes, and you go to a pyramid. And
I mean, like screen fades, now you're at a pyramid.
That's it. And the pyramid itself is like a Pac-Man-esque mini game of avoiding mummies that will instantly teleport you out of the pyramid, and the rewards for dodging all of them is a bunch of awesome loot. I think I maybe got one better item for each person for the rest of the game. So like this makes as if the game wasn't already a cakewalk. You start one hit killing everything from this point on.
I think you might get the mystery ring from that place too.
You also get a mystery ring, and
did any of you ever figure out what the mystery ring does?
I did not even equip it. I had a muscle ring, and that was fine.
I don't know what it did.
Yeah, I have no idea what it did. So at the store, the garbage store, I bought some hats, which are apparently not helmets. Hats are accessories, and they're not helmets. The only helmet in the game that I found was a poison helmet that would poison you but raise your defense. And I
think that's the only one. Yeah,
I never equipped it because I didn't want to get poisoned. So
because this game is so hard and you wouldn't be able to survive that.
Right. And so if you head all the way west in the town, there's a steak farm, which is literal steaks like roaming through a pasture. So you can pay 50 rubles to go in and select your steak. And I picked a shy one that when I squeezed it, it felt plump, and I took it with me.
Yeah, the steak description, they're also sad. Like they all have personalities, and one of them, it's like, oh, it's weak and sickly. It gives you a chesty cough and lies down as you draw near. And I'm like, that's so depressing because I'm imagining like a dog. Like you go to a dog, you go to like a what do you call it? An animal rescue, and there's like the thickest, most on the verge of death dog ever, and of course your heart just breaks and you're just like, oh my gosh, I have to adopt this dog.
I'll give this steak the best last 10 minutes of its life by eating
it. So after I bought my steak, I head north where everyone has said that Rip the Blood's hideout is, and I'm ambushed by a criminal, and I can tell that he's a criminal because his smoke ring spells crime.
I love that so much.
That's incredible enemy sprite, actually. Yeah, and also that part's weird because like this game, even though it's so like you said, it's like a joke game. It's like Stephen. I forget his last name, Stephen Miller, he goes by theCatamites. He put a weird amount of, like a ton of work into it, actually, even though it seems like it isn't, because like you said, you have on the field battles. But in this area, like every dungeon's different. Half the dungeons don't even have battles. They have weird gimmicks, like touch the mummy to get warped out, or touch the trap and lose health. They all have weird gimmicks. And this field area, its gimmick is that it's just like Pokemon for some reason. If you walk within line of sight of the enemies, the screen freezes and the music changes to literally music from like Pokemon Gen 3 or something. And then the enemy walks up to you like in Pokemon and challenges you to a battle. Like that only happens in this dungeon, but it's just like, this dungeon operates by Pokemon.
Complete with Pokemon battle starting music, but in a slightly lower register.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
it's like fuzzy and weird.
That's great. So when you make it to Rip the Blood's castle, there's a lot of traps, like Michael just mentioned, and not a whole lot of encounters. There's a couple more criminals to fight, but for the most part, you're just avoiding traps. And there was a chest in there that I couldn't figure out how to get to. I don't know if it was possible to get to it, but I tried a couple of things and I gave up and went on my merry way.
I don't recall any chests that I couldn't get, so I probably did get it, but it also probably wasn't any sort of item that was memorable or matters. So.
Yeah, it's the room where you put in the password. There's a ramp that goes down to the water, but you can't get in the water. On the other side of the water, you can see it when you first walk in. There's a chest there. So.
Oh, okay. No, you just were dribbling me. I didn't even notice that. Yeah.
So I have no idea if there's anything in there. It's probably the other good helmet, but.
The one other helmet.
So you put in the password, it builds a bridge, and you continue through. And Rip the Blood is in the next room, and he says that he's mining the town to find the power of the djinn, and no one will stand in his way. And he says, "Do you want to hear the story of the first man I ever killed?" And he starts a fight. So you can tell that he's the king of the criminals because his smoke rings say "King of Crime," which is so good. Like, you've already fought a bunch of criminals that say crime, and his says King of Crime.
I feel like he spends more time like practicing his smoke rings than he does like being good at fighting or being a criminal. Like, he's really good at that.
I beat the crap out of him in like a turn or two, and I go into the room behind him, and there's a lamp there, which is all caps probably worthless, and you rub it anyways, and out comes the djinn. And I'm like, I guess criminals don't have time to rub lamps. He's still mining the town, and he literally has the lamp already. But the djinn reads our mind for our truest wishes, and Leghorse wants his original form back, but the djinn can't do it. He says the only way you can do that is to go to the City of Forms, which we already were headed. And then I asked for happiness, and he gives me a self-help book and then turns me into a fish.
Yeah. I got the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, obviously, happiness is the most interesting one. So most people click it. I did save and try all three. If you ask for money or power, he just does what you'd expect. He gives you a really good weapon or like 1,000 rubles, which isn't even that much.
Yeah.
And then no matter what, he gives you a suitably ironic punishment, which is turning into a fish. Which the funny thing is, being a fish, I felt like was a little upsetting because you don't want to lose to play with the themes of the game. You don't want to lose your form. Mm-hmm. However, the fish walking animation is a lot less upsetting than walking animation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I flop my way back to Malice, and the first building from where it teleports you to is the wizard, who can turn you back into normal. So I turn myself back into normal, or technically I turn myself back into a sad. And then now that Rip the Blood is gone, I can go east to the forest, which is beautiful and purple. Like, I really liked the design.
Yeah,
like the trees are all like Susian and like blowing in the wind, and it's like purple and bright. And
that's great color palette.
Dug it. Like, everything has been either bare bones or purposely ugly, and this one I thought was like actually pretty. And towards the east of that screen, I find an elf, and when I try to talk to it, I pick it up, and he says something like, "No, give me my dignity," or something. And so then there's another screen with a whole bunch of elves there. I pick them all up, and the last one says, "Fine, I'll show you where our grotto is." And you walk in. There's the king of the elves, who gives me the power to toxic 5 enemies, some razor boots, and armored pants, which the razor boots are the absolute last upgrade that I got for Leghorse, and I never once used the toxic power because the game is pitifully easy.
I did use it just because I thought I might as well on the literal final boss. It didn't give me a text box saying that he like got or did not get poisoned, and it's not like a little number appears when they get poisoned. So I have no idea if it worked, but I did. I did use it on the boss.
Yeah, it does at least something. So after that, I head north, and I find the lion village. One of the lion tells me of Wild Man, all caps, of Mystery Forest, who talks of the all caps children of the revolution. the wise lion tells me of the lion heavens underground, from whence all lions are called forth with stakes and carcasses. And he also tells me that the wild man and the 20th century boy are the same thing, and he's weak against hypnosis, and the city of forms is to the east. I head east, and Leghorse stops at his house and says that prior to the change, he was Prince Horus, who ruled with his brother Dag. And then suddenly a dark figure appears, and it's the wild man, our very own 20th century boy. He fights us, and he goes down really easy. I didn't even have hypnosis, and I took him down really easy. I don't know how you would get to hypnosis. If it's something you learn by leveling up, I was vastly over leveled and still didn't have it, so I don't know if I missed something.
I don't remember if it's a thing that I got at any point. I don't know. It is a sad cutscene.
Yeah, so then after you kill the wild man, it turns out that he was Dag, and Leghorse is sad, and we promise to remove the cancer at the heart of the world and avenge Dag, and he dies, and it's sad. And then suddenly we're at the Northern Wastes. There's no travel. There's no text box that says anything.
You're just fade to black,
fade to black, and you come back and you're on top of a mountain somewhere. So
before we progress to the end of the game, I want to mention just a few more lines because I took a screenshot of like every line in this game. If you go to the Lion Village and talk to the Wise Lion, the first thing he says is It's just so great. He goes, "I am Wise Lion, the chief of Lion Village.
Oh, yeah.
You may call me Bubsy."
Yeah.
And in another sort of weird, I actually think very interesting little bit of lore, if you talk, there's one of those like lore dump NPCs where you can ask him various questions. And weirdly enough, you talk about the City of Forms, right? And where is it? Here it is. He goes, "The City of Forms is corrupted some time ago. It's a source of evil which taints the land of Space Funeral." And I thought that was cool because that's the only point in the game where the phrase Space Funeral is ever used. The whole time you're like, what the hell is a Space Funeral?
One more time at the end of the game, but I did.
Oh, they do? Yes. So you're just like, oh, apparently this place I'm at is called Space Funeral. Okay, because at this point, it's like the game's not set in space. You know, there's obviously caskets everywhere. But it's cool that they actually name drop the name of the game so that it means a little bit more than nothing.
Yeah, barely more than nothing.
Yeah. Oh, also, I don't know why I picture this. 20th Century Boy does give you 420 experience.
Yeah, I thought that was great.
That's nice.
In the Northern Waste, there's a house, and you meet Dracula, and you ask him a bunch of questions. Like it's like it lets you select yes or no, but the only choice are these questions, and it's bizarre. And you just ask him things like, "Hey, is that your piano?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Do you know any songs on it?" He's like, "No, I just mess around." He's like, "So you mean you vamp?" Which is great. Yeah. Tuxedo Ken will probably love Dracula in this game.
Yeah. And like, if you ask him who he is, he's just like, "I like to drink blood." And you're like, "Do you like to do anything else?" And then you ask him, "Do you like to smoke weed?" And Dracula's like, "Yeah." So then he goes, "I like to drink blood and smoke the weed." And like, and earlier there's foreshadowing where people are like, "Oh, I heard that there's like a Dracula in the Northern Waste, and people who enter never come out." Like, there's all this scary like horror movie foreshadowing, and I mean, you're in an icy place. There's already been one Kubrick reference in this game. It's it's this weird like classical music playing, like all of these horror tropes, and then you just like shoot the shit with Dracula. Like, yeah, I did tap on the piano. You can't even play the piano. No. Like you did, and like there's not even a cut
else like, interactable in his
house.
You
just walk out of the house and continue with the game.
And it's great. So back outside, there's another person that has a boat that'll take you to the City of Forms, and so I take it. When you actually get to the City of Forms, everything is like Sweet Bro and Hella Jeff levels of like perfectly ugly. Like all of the colors are garish. None of the tiles match up. Like there's a tree on the bottom that like the top of the tree is the bottom and the bottom of the tree is the top. And there's just everything.
Also, the game gets confused as to like what tiles your sprites are supposed to show up on top of and what sprites you're supposed to show up on the bottom of. Something I meant to ask earlier. I forget. Have either of y'all? I know.
I am.
That y'all played Earthbound. Have y'all beaten Earthbound?
I have not. I'm barely in it at all, and Eli's in the middle of it, I think.
Yeah, I'm on my way to Fourside currently.
Okay, that's interesting because this part reminds me of a part of Earthbound that you're not out yet at, so I won't say anything else. I know that you say you don't care about spoilers, but other people might, and Earthbound's a pretty interesting game, so I'll leave it.
I've been avoiding Earthbound spoilers so that I can play it blind on my YouTube channel.
Right.
It's infuriating. It is an infuriating game mechanics wise. I mean, it's cute and quirky and charming, but the mechanics are just the worst. Anyway, I had to get in my little rant.
Anyway.
Hard to disagree, but we'll talk about that later.
Oh boy.
That's okay. It's okay.
So right when you get to the City of Forms, Leghorse says that this is not a good place, and inside your mom is there, and she's standing on blue grass, like it is the grass tile but colored blue, and she says, "Come on in, the water's fine." I thought that was amazing because it's like the colors there are vaguely in the shape of a lake, but it's all grass. It's all the grass tile,
and you can walk on it. It's not like you can't collide with it.
Yeah, you can walk on it. It's nothing. And then there's two versions of your dad, and one says to do your best, and the other says to do your worst. And then ahead of them is a door that this was when I was like the master stroke of like consistency within the game. Like all of the sprites in the game are then there in this room, which if this is the City of Forms, these are the forms.
It literally to state it a little more strongly in case people don't get it. Like it's literally a room with every single sprite in the game, like every field sprite, not like the bad guys you fight. Like you just walk past everything that the game is made of, like the game's file. It's like here's a file dump of what is in the game.
It's like the sprite sheet pretty much. It's like you're walking by the sprite sheet the whole game.
Yeah, it's incredible. I did try talking to all of them just in case, and I think it would have been a bad design choice if any of them had said anything, and none of them did. So that's good.
Yeah. But I had to did. It was awesome because it was just like, that's weird at first. Like I wrote the thing about them being the forms like a couple of minutes later because it clicked finally, and I went back and I was like, oh my god, like it was their forms. Like this is where they all come so from. Cool. And because like Crash Course in ancient Greek philosophy, Plato thought that the spirit of everything was in this other place where all the forms were, and so every chair was just like a mockery of the true form of what a chair is there. That's why you can always recognize things. So like, oh, you don't know what every single fishing pole looks like, but you know what a fishing pole looks like, and it's because you are sensing its spirit of its form in the other place. So like this is that other place where those forms actually are, which I thought was like way too cool to be in this short little joke game. But on the other end of the form room, you go into a crazy striped room with a sprite that comes down that's cycling through all the sprites in the game, and but their only colors are all the way red and all the way blue, so it's like really garish and hard to look at, and it's constantly moving. He introduces himself as Moon, the person who corrupted the place. Moon says that they were an artist that sought purity of form, so they came to the city, but seeing the city only made them realize that they can never create something as perfect as the forms were. So he felt betrayed and unworthy. So he turned the city and therefore the world into a mockery of itself. And he says that he'll do it again, or maybe he already has. Maybe this is a cycle of endless distortion. And then he challenges me to a fight, and I win with like 3 turns.
Interesting thing that I did not know until this playthrough. I ended up saving before I ended up missing on a few things at the end of the game, so I loaded my save and beat the game a second time. And when I used the mystery move the second time, turns out Moon is a girl. I think so. I don't think there are any other pronouns used. So I think the only time a pronoun is used with Moon is did I not get a screenshot? Surely I did. Anyway, on my second playthrough, I used mystery, and it was like Moon does something, or Moon does something else, and it says her. And I was just like, huh. And I was just seeing Moon as a guy partially because of culturally ingrained stereotypes where we see things as male by default, but also because the game is made by a man, and you can see this as an author insert kind of thing. You know, like the author's anxiety is about about being an artist and about creation and about the value of art. So of course, in that sense, it made sense to think this is author insertion, so it's male. But yeah, Moon is a girl.
Moon is also the only
That's
character
cute.
I saw that said the word motherfucker.
Oh my gosh, yes. Her like you're about to have a battle. Dialogue, like her last line before you fight her is it starts off as like a ponderous philosophical line. She goes, "Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven, motherfucker."
Yeah,
And then you fight her.
it was great.
It's so good. So she fights me and I win, and then everything starts to shake, and she's like, yeah, the world is collapsing back into its perfection, like run away, save yourself, something like that. And so you run away and you get outside, and my favorite part of the game is you get outside and it uses the default Alex sprite from RPG Maker 2003 and the default everything, like all of those. Like normally you load up an RPG Maker game and you see those sprites and you roll your eyes and you're like, okay, this is going to be like generic because they use the generics everything. But here it was like so welcome because it's like, oh, like this is the perfect world, this is the normalcy, and using those sprites like instantly clicked it. If you've ever dabbled in RPG Maker or played an RPG Maker game, you know that is the default character of
the game just becomes a generic RPG Maker game after an hour or two of just like grossness and upsettingness. It's like, here's the trees and the walls and the ground. It's a generic Japanese role-playing game.
And it's so good.
Oh, do y'all remember at the very end, right before the screen fades, it does the camera pans to the right?
Oh yeah.
And that image, that tile that was used at the beginning of the game for your house, in a lot of the houses, that is just a large stone skull that is bleeding. There is just one of those sitting there on the grass in the otherwise perfect RPG Maker, boring RPG Maker world.
Yeah. And I love that, like, in the gross world, like, almost none of the houses were the boring square that everyone ends up making in RPG Maker. But when you come out of Moon's Castle in RPG Maker land, it's that boring square. Like, it's very much a, like, critique on other boring RPG Maker games, that it hits all of these things in like a 10-second pan across the ground right there. And I thought it was great. But so after you see that skull, that's the end of that entire game, and it runs through its credits.
Which the credits are funny because it's game created by Steven, I forget his last name, Steven Miller. That's hilarious. That's not him. That's a different person. Steven Miller, he's like the white supremacist guy. No, or is he a playwright? No, that's Arthur Miller. Whatever, I don't know what's on. Anyway, it says like game created by theCatamites, and then the rest of the credits is just the music credits and telling you what the literary references were.
Which I thought was cool. But fun fact, Steven doesn't give his last name on his Game Jolt page. He just says Steven and then it X's out his last name. Oh. So it's Steven XXXX.
Interesting.
But he about 3 years ago, he translated the game into Russian, which is awesome because you use rubles.
Yeah, I played a bit of the Russian version. I mean, it was great. I just didn't keep playing it because it was taking me too long to play it because my Russian isn't as good as it used to be. What is his last name? Gosh. Okay. I follow him on Twitter. He's just Steven theCatamites on Twitter. So whatever. People have interviewed him and stuff. It's not like it's a secret what his last name is, but I don't know what it is right now. So.
Yeah. But that was the game. Eli, how did you enjoy this game?
It hurt my eyes. It was very interesting. It was not at all I didn't know what I was gonna get going into it, except that the menu said blood, 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 and it was called Space Funeral, and I was like, well, bad shit is gonna happen. And then it was just as Michael put it earlier, a masterpiece of hideousness, or however you said it. It was just like train wreck kind of ugly. Like I just couldn't look away because it was so disgusting. I couldn't get over the bizarre way my sprite moved, and I think it did a really good job of like you were saying earlier, critiquing the generic RPG Maker games just by like that very end, like when everything, when you had the final cutscene and you saw the Alex sprite and all the generic RPG Maker sprites, I was just like, wow, okay, yeah, I really like this game. I really appreciate its self-awareness. And yeah, I thought it was a really cool experience.
Yeah, I also really liked it. I had a smile on my face the whole time, which I think is like what Michael was getting at earlier, where it's hilarious but you're not laughing. Where it's just like it's those deep like yes, a joke was made and we all agreed that this was a good joke. Haha, hurrah. Those sort of like great things. Like a lot of like internet memes are that way, where I do it, I'm like, oh, that's really clever, but I'm not like laughing on my phone or whatever. And I was just like it definitely felt to me like there's a phone game called Today I Die, I think. And
oh yeah, I think I played that when it wasn't a phone game. I think it's also on the computer in some sense.
It might be, but it's very much like a plot light but somehow still moving story, just like art piece that uses game things. And I was prepared for this game to be like that. Like most games that clock in under 2 hours typically are an art piece more than a game. And this definitely was on that same sort of like shtick to it. And yeah, like I wasn't prepared for how much everything that every NPC in the game made me happy, even though it was all like dark and bloody and gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird how everyone in the game world seems sort of like they all just seem pretty content with their fate. Even the ones that are upset, they're just like, there's so many exclamation points, right? Someone will be like, yeah. I'm enslaved in the mines. I am dying of coughing! Exclamation point. Like,
like there's this one that he says, Rip of Blood is a great leader. There's no poor people here because he made all the poor people slaves in his mind.
Yes, yeah.
and like even the lions are like the criminals don't know who they're dealing with. We will eat their bones! Like exclamation point. Like everyone's just so happy to be the way they are, even though everything is like ostensibly like terrible and formless, and it's just such a strange mood. It's very much it's funny because yeah, you guys I haven't played Dragon Quest, but like I feel like you can draw a straight line from Dragon Quest to Earthbound to this game, and there's just a lot of just that lineage of because so in Dragon Quest, your main character, he always like I think it might do this in Earthbound too. In Dragon Quest, if you stop moving, like if you're not moving your guy will like walk in place. Like his walking, basically he doesn't have a walking animation. His walking animation happens all the time, even when you're just standing. And a lot of the NPCs do that too. They just walk back in place. So that makes it look like everyone's just peppy, right?
Yeah.
And you talk to them and they're like, welcome to the town. There's a monster in a cave to the east, and that positivity just permeates the entire like Dragon Quest experience. Even some of the later games where things do get kind of weird and dark. And I feel like this game was just like, what if we just like multiply that by 50? Like everyone's just having a great time. They love you for playing the game and they're glad you're here. Like, thank you so much for playing my game.
Yeah, it was great. I'm glad we went with this one. My other like choice before I had an idea to bring Michael in was going to be for Eternal Senia. It's a serious game that's only 2 hours long. And if we need another bonus episode, that's definitely one that will probably do it. But I'm glad we ended up going with this one because it's oddly on brand for Persona.
Yeah.
And
it's
so
like
I
what if
thought
Persona was fun? Not fun like not thinking this is fun. I just mean had like a fun mood, instead of being really scary.
So speaking of Welcome to Night Vale, specifically, this game reminds me of the Desert Bluffs episodes. If you're not familiar with Night Vale, they have a rival town, Desert Bluffs, that also has a radio station, and their radio host just sounds like he's always smiling and having a great time.
It's then doing the voice, isn't it? Because I haven't gotten that far in Night Vale just yet.
No, it's Kevin Free does the voice, but it's a super happy fun time. And Cecil at one point ends up in the Desert Bluffs recording booth, and everything is made out of blood. Like, it is horrifying and gross. But you listen to it, and like, instead of the like ambient drum track that they usually use for Night Vale, it's this like flamenco guitar going like bum ba bum 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 ba bum bum. Like, it's so happy, and Kevin's voice is a giant smile, and everything is made out of blood, and that's pretty much this game.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was under that impression because of something I watched about Night Vale. But yeah, I have not gotten that far just yet. I only recently started listening to it, and oh my god, I love it.
Yeah, it's if you enjoy this game as you got through it, you probably will really enjoy Night Vale. Night Vale is definitely so happy that you're there listening to its talk of eldritch monsters and stuff. It's great. But yeah, that about wraps us up for this bonus episode. Michael, it was great to have you. Don't know if I should spoil that we're probably going to have you a lot, but because I don't know when that will be.
Well, I'll go ahead and spoil it. So yeah, and you can cut it if you feel like it. So the issue is, so I was supposed to be here all along doing Persona, but some life stuff happened, namely being unemployed and too stressed out about being unemployed to play a video game. And anyway, that might end soon, but also playing video games is good for self-care, even if you're stressed out about being unemployed. So anyway, if I catch up, I might be here next week. I almost feel like it's like, sometimes you play most of an RPG and you feel like you've got the whole party, but then you get to like the very end and Fusoya joins your team. and you're like, oh, I didn't realize I was going to have a new party member this late in the game. I feel like maybe I'll be that guy. I'll be your Fusoya, except I won't like cast a spell so hard that I die.
You literally think you're about to finish the game, and then you get Magus to join your party, and then there's another 20 hours to get through.
What happens is, sometime this week, me and Sam are going to fight, and after we fight, he can choose to kill me, or he can choose to ask me to join his party.
Boy, I hope it's not the former.
Good luck, Sam. I don't want to die.
I technically spoiled that you existed last week when we announced the games, because I was like, and us hosts all have 4 votes, but there were only 3 hosts up to that point. So
that was on purpose. That's good foreshadowing.
Yeah, I'm going to pretend like that was on purpose.
Yeah, it totally was. Absolutely.
What a twist.
But that does remind me that the poll is still active. I probably will extend it a week since we took a week off here while the poll was active. I still want it to come out to finish up on the 9th episode. But if you want to vote on the next game that we play, it'll be either Rogue Galaxy or Okage Shadow King. Currently, it's really neck and neck between our votes and the Patreon votes. So if you love one of these games, definitely go and vote on it. That'll be really cool of you. There's a couple of you that are probably listening that have already subscribed on Patreon and have not voted yet. Just go click the thing and it'll be great.
Question.
Extremely Hillary Clinton voice. Pokemon Go to the polls.
Question. If I subscribe to our own Patreon, can I get a second vote?
I think that's fair.
I think that's fair. But you already have one because your partner is subscribed, and you could just be like, "Hey, Ken, you should vote for this game."
He already made his choice, and it's not my choice. And
oh man,
I can't rely on him for shit.
You better subscribe. So, make a bunch of alt accounts. I mean, I don't care if our listeners will be people.
Yeah.
Make a bunch of sock puppets and just pay $1 on each of them, and suddenly my paycheck is like $100 lighter than normal. What the hell is going on?
You're like, but we're going to be playing the game that I want to play.
Yes, god damn it.
But yeah, if you want to check out that Patreon, it's patreon.com/RPG Book Club. On that Patreon, we have a link to our Twitter and our Discord. Our Discord's where we hang out most of the time. Our Twitter is mostly where we retweet Persona memes. And I was going to retweet a bunch of Space Funeral memes today, but the last post about Space Funeral was from 2016. And I almost wanted to do it, but just imagine being that person that it's like, oh, somebody retweeted your post from a million years ago.
Who is this creep?
But, we'll probably do a bunch of our screenshots that Michael took, put them up on our Twitter. But if you want to go to that Twitter directly, it's at RPG Book Club, all one word. The Discord doesn't have a handy dandy link, so go to either the Twitter or the Patreon for a link to the Discord so you can come and hang out with us. There's also links to all this in the description, as well as a link to Eli's Let's Play channel. And yeah, I think that'll pretty much do it for this week for RPG Book Club. I have been Sam Allman.
I'm Elias Sailor Eli Warren.
I'm Michael B.
Michael Part 2.
Actually, we forgot to talk about that. So y'all already got a Michael. Y'all talked about calling him something different or whatever, but y'all could just call me Spiffle. That's my internet name.
Spiffle.
I can just be Spiffle, and we can call Michael. That's fine.
You don't want to be Michael 2, Electric Boogaloo?
No, I'd rather be Michael 2, The Quickening.
So I'm partial to Michael 2, Michael Harder with a Vengeance.
Yeah, exactly. Or this time it's not Michael 1.
Look who's Michael 2.
That's good.
Nice.
But yeah, I will see you guys later. We should be back on November 1st of Persona 3, starting on Monday. And we'll talk to you then. Everybody should be together. We'll have the whole gang together, more than likely.
Woo!
So, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen. Goodbye.
Bye.
До свидания.